Alright, yo! These are the 3 biggest mistakes that I see coaches and personal trainers making on a regular basis. These are the biggest things that I see contributing towards like a 95% turnover rate or something like that for PTs. And the average lifespan for a PT is like 3 to 6 months from what I've seen. And they fall off pretty quickly. It all comes down to not knowing how to run your business. Of course, we have to be able to service clients, help them properly. That is part of it. But the biggest mistakes overall are not knowing how to run a business. Because if you don't know how to run a business, you can't actually help your clients that well because you're fighting to survive and just to not even be able to make a living. And when you're in that state, you can't really help people. So these are the 3 biggest mistakes that I see PTs and coaches making. Number 1, I call it build it and they shall come. It's that expectation of, oh, I've started at a gym now. Of course, they're going to give me clients. I'm going to think, I've started as an online coach now. I've put my profile up. People are just going to come and work with me. It does not work like that. People aren't just going to come to you, especially when you're new, and just be like, hey, I want to work with you. At best, from most gyms, I can't even recall a single gym in my mind that is really good with giving PTs the number of leads that they need, and especially the quality of the leads that come from that. If they give you a lot, they tend not to be very high quality. Maybe I'm wrong, and there's probably a gym out there that does that. The only times I've seen that really work is when people join like teams, like a coach team, because somebody is doing these things that I'm about to mention, but these are things that you can do yourself. If you're a coach or a PT, you can make this stuff happen yourself. And essentially, it's like you actually have to build your business. You can't just expect to be like, oh, I'm a PT, and then people come and work with you. You have to build your business, and that is through your branding, through your marketing, through the way you advertise yourself. I'm not talking paid advertising. Most PTs and coaches don't use paid advertising to start. I haven't used it yet, but I will be in the foreseeable future. Now, when it comes to that, what I mean by branding yourself is basically just who you are, who you help, all that kind of stuff, building up your personal brand, and marketing yourself accordingly. So online, this would look like posting stuff that's relevant to the people that you want to help. I'm going to go back a step and say a big part of all of this is you got to figure out your niche. Who do you want to help? Who specifically do you want to help? What are their problems? What are the things that hold them back emotionally, like on a deep level? Not just, oh, I want to lose fat. I want to gain some muscles. Like deeper. What do they really want? How can you really help them? And then when it comes to personal trainers or online coaches, it's about focusing on that and helping those people as well as you can. Because a lot of the time when you say, oh, I help everyone, you help next to no one. It's very difficult. You can still help other people, but niching down is huge for that, and that's a big thing a lot of people miss. So by way of the niche, your branding would basically, you put out content related to things that answer the questions or the problems that your niche has. The most immediate things you can answer and the most attractive things that you can answer for them is how my mentor put it to me recently, and that's an awesome way of putting it, I think. So by way of that, and then you've got to be able to market yourself accordingly. So then that's part of the marketing, is like putting yourself out there and being able to actually answer those questions that your niche the questions that your niche have. So part of that as well is going to your niche, approaching them, marketing. So if you're a personal trainer, it's going up to people, talking to them, being at the desk, saying hi, doing things, having the initiative to actually build your business, you know? So in that sense, I guess it's true, build it and they shall come, because you build the business, the right people will come into that. But it's not just like, oh, start and people will be lining up for you. They have no reason to. They don't even know you a lot of the time. And that's okay. That's actually a cool thing, because you have an opportunity to build all of that up yourself. And then with that, like I said, sales comes with that as well. You've got to learn how to sell. It's a skill, and learn how to sell in a way that works for you. I think in this line of work in particular, it's not really an approach that's hard selling. It's very much an approach that respects where people are at in their journeys, and respects that fully. So you don't have to have everyone sign up to you, and you have to be okay with that as well. And a lot of your sales ability will also stem from your confidence in yourself, knowing what you have to offer, knowing your value. So that's huge. That encompasses point number 1. Number 2 would be thinking others are competition, not colleagues. Now, when it comes to this might sound a little bit counterintuitive, but I do say it a lot. The fact is, other coaches, other personal trainers are not your competition. We're actually all in this together. And if you force yourself to, or if you allow yourself to think that we're all in competition, or whoever's in the same field as you are your competitors, you actually limit yourself to trying to just compete with them. You can look to them and see what success they have, learn from that. But when it comes to all of this side of things, saturation is not really an issue. It really isn't. And the biggest reason is because all the information that you're thinking that you're competing on is out there anyway. It's for free. Someone is giving that out anyway. Someone like me, someone like Eugene Teo, anyone, people like that. They're all giving that information out for free. So it's not the information, because if it was just the information, then you'd be in competition with everyone. It's about who knows more than necessary and all of that. The real value that you bring, so if you think all your value is solely in the information side of things, then that can be an issue. But the real value that you have as a coach, as a personal trainer, is your mind. You specifically. You are the value. So if you recognize that and lean into that, you'll see that there's no competition, because I'm me. Another coach will be them. Austin is Austin. Yana is Yana. And that's where the value is. Not in how much I know, but my ability, that's part of it. That's part of it. How much you know is part of it. But your ability to distill that information to the people that you want to help in the right way, at the right time, and in a way that they can understand and simply apply so it's actually effective. That is huge for that. So if you divert your attention towards thinking, oh, I've got to compete with this guy, oh, this guy, that, we're doing the same thing, then you're not actually able to lean into your strengths and really help people as much as you want to. So yeah, that's a really big thing there. You got to realize your colleagues. There is no really competition in that sense. Oversaturation, not a thing. Because you are your value. Yeah, just a quick question here. Also, I have found that it's very important to not just dip when prospects say no for the first time. Later on they may buy, and that's literally happening for me right now. No just means they aren't at the right moment to buy at that time. Perfect. I love the way that you summarize that, man. Exactly. It's about respecting the journey. It's not about they say no, dip, forget about it. It's like, cool. I respect where you're at in your journey. If it's a no, it's a no. And I know some sales coaches would be like, that's awful advice. But I genuinely think that's huge, because you leave the door open as well and respect people's journey. Because it's also about how you make people feel, how you're going about that side of things. You can dig deeper. This is part of the sales ability. You can dig deeper and think, man, you can dig deeper with them to help them reach an empowered decision, because sometimes people put up smoke screens to be like, oh no, I don't want to because I can't afford it. Everyone can afford it, for the most part. So it's not about that. It's not about the money. It's actually about some other issues they might be having. So that's perfectly fine to dig deep with them and bring these things to light. But it's also important to actually take a no for a no and just be like, that's fine. If someone says no, that is completely okay. And that's something I say at the start of all my sales calls and that, or sales talks. I call them advice calls. It's perfectly fine for them to say no. And I'm going to give them some advice that helps set them on their way immediately, that they can action regardless, because I genuinely want to see these people succeed. And if need be, I'll refer them to someone else that I think might be a good fit. And that's completely fine. And I really think that's a good way, because it comes from a genuine place, there's genuine trust. And it's really the only way that people will fully trust you as well, is that's part of it. You need that in order for people to really genuinely trust you and be willing to work with you, to buy from you, to take up what you have to offer, basically, in a good way. And one of the biggest things, third mistake, is blaming instead of doing. So a lot of the time we divert our energy to the wrong things, and one of the biggest things in that sense is blaming. So people tend to blame external circumstances, other people, or themselves. That's big. And what happens when you blame things is you give the power to something else. For example, you start up at a gym, you see all these other PTs being successful, you'd be like, oh, that's because they're attractive. That's because they're more muscular than me. That's because they're leaner than me. That's because they're more charismatic. The charismatic one kind of fits in within that. But the biggest thing is, if you blame them, you give all the power away. You can look, rather than blaming them, you could look at what they're doing successfully and just be like, what can I apply? And more often than not, the people that are complaining about that aren't the ones putting themselves out there, talking to people, going on the gym floor. And when you ask them why, they tend to go, oh, it's not comfortable. I don't want to come across too pushy, too salesy. Giving yourselves outs. Easy to do that. Another one is blaming your external circumstance, or your circumstance, because that's external. And for example, that'd be, oh, I've signed up to the gym, but they're not giving me any leads. This is trash. The gym sucks. The gym's giving me bad leads. Think about, is that more of an issue on the gym side or your side? Because I've never met a gym that 100% filled up that roster of people by just the gym. It's come from myself, you know? Like, it's not something that comes from outside. So you have to put that work in as well. Even really great gyms, you have to put in that work yourself. And this applies to any business as well. Blaming circumstance doesn't help you. It just gives the power away to the circumstance. There is always something that you can do, regardless of circumstance. And the people that are going to make it will make it in the worst of circumstances. The people that aren't going to make it, any circumstance basically will shatter them. Any negative circumstance. Because you can't only be the kind of person who's going to make it, willing to risk it all and be all in the good times. Those people that are only in it whilst times are good aren't going to make it. And you have to be willing to be in the bad times and not even know how long it's going to be. You just have to know that you're going to make it out the other side of that. And that's who you have to be. That's what you got to be. You got to be about that. And the third thing that people tend to blame, circling to that, is themselves. Now, this is an issue because a lot of the time people can be like, oh, this thing's not going well. I'm doing this. Oh, I'm terrible. I'm trash. Like, it's all my fault. I'm the worst. Like, oh, man. And then you notice a lot of the time when you do that, nothing changes. People loop back around, they keep doing the same thing. They don't make any changes because just blaming yourself and like just kind of like piling onto yourself, that makes you feel better. And a lot of the time we want to do something when things aren't going well, but piling onto yourself overtly and going way too far with it makes you feel like, oh, I did something. I beat myself up for that. That's good. And then as a result, no action needs to be taken subconsciously for you a lot of the time because you already did something about it. You beat yourself up for it. But on the surface, nothing's changed. Like, you haven't actually put yourself in a position to take different action because you've self-soothed. You soothed yourself into being like, oh, it's okay. I beat myself up. I gave myself a slap on the wrist. No worries. Nothing else needs to change. And that cycle just repeats until they quit PT because it's just not for them, in their opinion. So what you can do instead is not blame yourself. You've got to be realistic and be like, yes, what am I not doing well? Yes, you have to look at those things, but don't beat yourself up for it. Just take it is what it is. Look at what you need to do and just have a bit of optimism about it, I think is huge. Because then if you do that and you just accept it is what it is and look at what you could need to do instead without going crazy on the blame side of things, you subconsciously want to solve those things a lot of the time. Be like, what can I do? And if you haven't done the self-soothing by blaming, you're much more likely to go do the other things there as well. So yeah, those are the three biggest mistakes that I see PTs and coaches, and to be honest, any business make. So expecting to have it given to you, I guess is a better way of putting it. So expecting to have it all given to you and people just coming to you. Thinking others are competition and not your colleagues, because you're in this together, you can elevate one another, and if everyone around you rises, you rise as well. So there's no point in keeping secrets and that kind of thing. And the third one, blaming instead of doing. We can be about it as well.